Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this second episode of season 1 of TechTalks101 powered by FCode Labs. So today also we have an interesting personality to speak about his research that he is doing currently in the University of New South Wales in Australia. And also for our undergraduate crowd, this would be an opportunity for you to get an understanding about what are the things that you need to do in order to find an higher studies opportunity in Australia. So for the first episode that we had a quite good feedback from you guys. For the people who could not join us with the first episode and who are watching this for the first time, I would like to mention a bit about what this Tech Talks 101 is. So this is an initiative brought to you by FCode Labs, where we bring to you the future developments in the in research and development in this industry in terms of technology, and also the current implementations of technology by the industries that are happening currently, and also how these future developments in research and development and also the current implementations in technology will help to take this world through a technology-led development. So having said that, we will move into today's podcast. And today we have an interesting personality, like I said. He is currently reading for his PhD in computer science engineering in the University of New South Wales of Australia. And he was a former software engineer at CodeGen Private Limited. And he is also from a graduate from the Faculty of Engineering of University of Moratuwa, coming from the Department of Electronic and Telecommunications Engineering. And he was also a former intern at Effective Solutions Private Limited. So please welcome Mr. Ishan Karunanayake. Hello, Mr. Ishan. How are you doing?
Hi, Pama. I'm good. Thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me to this session as well.
Yes. So how are you doing these days? How is your life in Australia these days happening with the pandemic and your university work? How are you coping with things?
Well, these days I'm mostly focused on my research, and other than that, sometimes I hang out with some friends that I've made here, and I would say that's um, that's about it. That's what I'm mostly doing these days. And yeah, uh, when I have some free time, I sometimes watch a movie or go and see uh, go out and have some food, uh, things like that. Yeah.
That's great. So yes, so Mr. Ishan Karunanayake is the person that we have today, and we will be speaking a lot about his research in early detection of botnets that use privacy preservation techniques, the research that he is carrying out for his PhD. But before rolling into to speak in detail about his research, let's speak with him and get a little more understanding about his background, about his academic background, and how has he come to this stage, going through the from the previous experiences that he have had. So yes, we know for a fact that we are a graduate from the Faculty of Engineering of Moratuwa, University of Moratuwa. And can you tell us a bit more about your academic background, where your school is, and how did you get into the Faculty of Engineering of University of Moratuwa, and then how did you proceed from there to move into University of New South Wales?
Okay, Pama. So I'm from Matara in Sri Lanka, and I studied at Rahula College, Matara, from grade 1 to grade 13. And then after my A levels, I was selected to the University of Moratuwa, and then there we had this exam where we had to select a field of specialization, and there I selected electronics and telecommunication. But at the time, like, I was not really aware of what I really wanted to do. So later on, I kind of shifted into software engineering work, and after graduating, I got a job as a software engineer at Cogen International. Um, then after a couple of years, due to several reasons, I started thinking about higher studies, and then I started applying uh, to a couple of universities here in Australia, and I also wrote to a few professors in some of the fields that I was interested. And luckily, I got two of us. One was from University of Melbourne, and the other was from the University of New South Wales. And yeah, considering a few factors, I finally decided to do my PhD at University of New South Wales, and here I am. I would say.
Okay, so it's very interesting that to hear that you have got not just one but a few of us, many of us from university. So I believe it will be you'll be some interesting person for our undergraduate listeners to speak with and get an understanding about how are you going to apply for higher studies opportunities and what you need to do in order to get through these milestones. So speaking about the research and the field that you are in, which is cybersecurity. So, how did you move into this field of cybersecurity, and why did you move into the field of cybersecurity for your research? Was there any specific reason, or you just capitalize on the opportunity that you got?
I would say it's the latter, because as I told you, when I selected electronics and telecommunication engineering, I didn't have an idea what I was going for, and in my third year, I had this mandatory internship, and I joined a software company, and there I started to become a bit passionate about software engineering. After that, in my final year also, I worked in a lot of software projects, and then I started working as a software engineer. Then once I started to look for these PhDs, I was trying to find a, a scholarship or a PhD opportunity in computer science. But for that, I had to select a couple of fields that I'm passionate about, and cybersecurity was actually one of them. And I was also looking for other research areas such as machine learning and software engineering, and likewise. But then um, I also got another opportunity, as I told you, from University of Melbourne, but that was kind of in biomedical engineering. And the reason that I got that opportunity was my final year project was a biomedical engineering project, and then there I had to make a decision whether I was going for a biomedical engineering PhD or a software engineering PhD, and there I decided to go with that, and it was actually in the area of cybersecurity. I kind of had a passion, uh, or an I would say it was more of an interest while I was an undergraduate, but I hadn't done much work, or I wasn't aware of many things in cybersecurity domain when I applied for that. But uh, now I'm really interested in that area, and I hope I can carry out some important research in this domain.
That's great to hear about it. So, yes, before moving on to speak about more details about your research, let's just speak about how has your experience been in University of New South Wales, moving into Australia, and like finding getting exposed to the international community and the academics in University of New South Wales, because I believe that would be a complete different experience from what we have here, because you get exposed to a lot of academics who are coming into Australia and to the university from different parts of the world. So how has your experience been being in collaborating with these people and moving forward with your academics there?
Yeah, so there are actually few differences when I compare my experience here with my experience at University of Moratuwa. One of them is the cultural diversity. I would say there, like most of my friends, most of the students are Sri Lankans, but here, like there are uh, lots of people from other countries. I'm working with people from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, most South Asian people, and then there are people from China, and also UK, Scotland. Like there are like many people who have come from different regions of the world, and who are doing research here. And there are like even in the undergraduate courses, there are many students from different countries. So that diversity is something that I experienced here, which was not there in Sri Lanka. Also, the um, the other main thing is the like the postgraduate experience. It is completely different to what I experienced as an undergraduate. While I was doing my undergraduate studies, we had like we used to know everyone in everyone in our department and many of our seniors. We had a lot of coursework, but here in my PhD, I don't have much coursework to do. So I and especially in the first year, I started my PhD last year. So in about 4 weeks, Australia went into lockdown, and I had to stay and work in my room, and I didn't meet many people. All our work, all our courses, and everything was shifted. Meetings were shifted online, and because of this, I didn't have a chance to meet many people. And I would say the first few months were a bit lonely, and that was and it was very stressful as well. Um, so that was kind of a different experience for me. uh, and uh, and and the other thing is in a PhD you have to like do everything yourself. You have to find the research problem. You have to make sure that uh, it's something that has not been tried before, not as something that has not been done before, and you have to come up with a solution to tackle that problem, and you have to uh, like before starting to do any experiments, you have to prove that this the the solution you are proposing is feasible. So these are actually really challenging, and it's not similar to what we did as an undergraduate, where we study some modules and write an exam. Yeah, so I would say those are the things that I experienced here in Australia. And after a few months, I was actually able to travel a bit. I went once to Melbourne a couple of months back, and I'm actually located in Sydney, and I had a chance to visit a few places around Sydney when the COVID situation started to settle down in Australia. Um, yeah, and it was like it's really different here to live in another country, because previously I have traveled to a couple of countries before, but I haven't stayed in those countries for more than 1 week or so. But here I'm living here, and everything is a new experience. Yeah, I would say it's a good experience to have.
Great. So you mentioned something about how the challenges that you had when you had like how what you needed to do in terms of figuring out the research problem and setting up the background to move forward with the research. So we'll be speaking about it as well towards the latter part of this podcast. So now, your research in cybersecurity is about early detection of botnets that use privacy preservation techniques. So, before moving into speaking in depth about this research, could you please tell a bit about what are botnets and what are privacy preservation techniques, so that the people who are listening to this podcast would can also it would also help them to set the background in understanding the scope of this research when we speak about it.
Yes, Palmer. So botnets are actually a network of infected machines by a similar type of malware, and we can say these computer viruses and worms and all the other um, vectors which can infect a computer as malware. And uh, there is a person who controls the botnet, which we call a botmaster. And this botmaster has access to a command and control server, and the botmaster uses this command and control server to control the botnet. And these botnets can be used to do various kinds of criminal activities, including attacks, which can actually execute, which can get many sensitive information from companies, and which can be used to do some financial frauds, things like that. And privacy preservation techniques are techniques which helps us to protect our privacy when we are online. So there are different types of methods such as anonymization, and there are cryptographic methods, and some methods called randomization methods. These kind of methods can be used to protect our privacy, yeah, while we are browsing uh, several things on the internet. And in my research, I am mostly focused on Tor, which is a famous anonymity network, uh, which I would say currently the most popular anonymity network that there is. And it actually helps a user to preserve his to hide their IP address or hide their location when they are accessing a website. I hope that would be sufficient to get some basic idea about what botnets and privacy preservation techniques are.
Yes, absolutely. So, in your research, how do you correlate the botnets and privacy preservation techniques? As in, what do you do in the research to use preservation techniques to for the early detection of botnets? Where is your direction headed in this context?
Okay, so the legal authorities and network defenders are the people uh, who are always looking for these cyber attacks, are always trying to bring down these botnets because they are a huge threat to the online community. And once you identify a botnet, what is usually done is they try to identify the command and control server that I told you about, and uh, they try to shut that down. So that's using that way. It's easier for a legal entity or a network defender to completely shut down a botnet. Uh, but recently, some bot masters have started to use these anonymity networks, such as Tor, and their features to hide the location of these servers, these command and control servers, and other components of a botnet, including their communication. Uh, and this has actually made it difficult for people uh, in the law enforcement and who are in charge of network security to identify and track down these command and control servers and the bot masters who are responsible for them. So what I'm trying to do in my research is to try to figure out ways which uh, which enable those entities to identify and track down the botnets and the command and control servers. So that's my main objective of the research, and yeah, it is usually narrowed down to several other sub areas.
So, yeah, initially you mentioned like the effort that you had to put into do the background researchers and to identify the background areas that would contribute to this research, and how I'm going to do the gap analysis. So could you please tell us about a bit more about the challenges that you had to face during the initial stages of the research in terms of identifying the background and doing the gap analysis, and like what is the approach that you took on that regard, because I believe that would be an important point that would be helpful for the undergraduate listeners we have here with the podcast, so that it would help them to go do something better with the researches that they are doing in their respective universities.
Okay. Yeah. So uh, the literature survey and the identifying a problem to tackle is one of the hardest challenges that you face once you start a PhD. And the reason is, as I told you before, there are few factors associated with that. You need to find a problem, then you need to prove that it has not been tackled before, then you need to come up with a solution, and then uh, you need to say your solution is feasible. And this complete thing has to be supported by previous literature. And that is a really big challenge for someone who's starting a PhD. Uh, and in my case, I was a bit lucky because one of my funding agencies already had several milestones set for me. But still, I had to do a literature survey, and based on the things that I found there, I had to change some of those milestones later because some were not feasible and some of them were not relevant. And due to reasons like that, I had to do some minor changes with some of the milestones. And most part of your first year would be like um, reading lots of papers that have been published on your area, and you need to get a good background knowledge about what we are going to do. And if anyone, for anyone who's starting with the PhD, uh, what I would suggest is to not to worry and just keep reading some papers and trying to improve your knowledge. And you will realize once you read a certain amount of paper and once you get some basic background knowledge, then you start to see some problems that are available, some gaps that have not been tackled. And then you will also notice how other researchers have tackled similar problems. And using this knowledge you have gathered, you'll be able to answer those four questions I mentioned at the beginning. Yeah, I would say just you have to like keep pushing forward and improving your knowledge.
Yes, that's something very insightful, and I believe it would be helpful for all the undergraduate listeners that we have here with the podcast. So, one more question: like, what is the future direction or the way forward in of the research that you are carrying out right now?
Um, well, the best thing would be to come up with a tool or something that can actually detect botnet traces or botnets that use these privacy preserving techniques, um, and to go from there and develop maybe a commercial tool that can actually be used by the wider community. But um, I'm not sure whether that will be possible, but uh, what I can do before that is to try and come up with try and experiment several things and see how I can actually uh, find a solution for the problems that I have defined, and then maybe I can try to publish a few papers that would help other researchers to get some knowledge and build up from what I have done. So um, that's what I am trying to do at the moment. And if everything works well, then the final product would be a tool that can be used by especially the law enforcement and network defenders.
Perfect. So I wish you all the best in achieving that in the future as well. And there's one more question that I
Thank you.
actually need to add at the end. So now you said that you were specifically trying for to find some opportunities in Australia, and you were successful in getting 2 offers for your PhDs. So would you be able to just tell us a little bit about like what are the steps or the procedures that you need to follow when you are searching for a PhD? Like what you need to do if you are an undergraduate student, or whether if you are a graduate who just passed out, what are things that they need to do to apply for a PhD? Like if you could explain it in steps, that would be much more helpful for the listeners of this podcast.
Uh, yeah, um, actually, um, the way you need to apply for a PhD differs from country to country, and I will give some idea about how to find a PhD opportunity in Australia. Here, the PhDs are uh, you can do a PhD uh, uh, in about 3 to 4 years, and before you apply for a PhD, you first need to find a supervisor in most of the cases. So, what you need to do is you need to first find a university that uh, you are you are passionate about, where you like to study. Then also you need to have an idea about the area that you are going to do your PhD in. Then what you can do is you can go to that university's website, and then you can try to find the researchers and academics who are working in that specific area that you are trying to find your PhD in. Then what you need to do is you need to write to those supervisors, and you need to write to those researchers and ask whether they are interested in supervising you. Also, it it is usually important to ask whether they have any funds available to fund your research, because it's living in Australia can be a bit expensive, and you may not be able to uh, like uh, fund your whole stay there with all the travel and everything. So it's always better to have some funding for your PhD. And um, uh, in Australia, you are allowed to work uh, for several hours per week. It's usually 20 hours per week, and you can do a part-time job. But studying and working would be sometimes difficult, and most of the postgraduates are are coming here with their families sometimes. So it's important to have some money to afford your lifestyle here as well. Uh, so once if a supervisor has some fund, and if there are some funds, and if they're willing to supervise you, they will reply to you, and they might have an online interview with you. And if they're happy, then they would encourage you to apply for the PhD. Then what you need to do is you need to go to the university's website, and you need to fill out some application forms, and wait until you get an outcome for that application. And if you are successful, then you can start applying for visa and then start your PhD. So that's the normal procedure that I used to follow when I was looking for PhDs. And there are some minor details that I can add to anyone who's interested in finding more details. But I think what I already said would be enough.
Thank you very much. That is a very beneficial piece of information for anyone who is looking to apply for their PhDs and in Australia. And I believe that would be very helpful for them to get to know about what they need to do in order to apply for their PhDs in Australia. So now we have come to the end of this episode as well, the second episode of season one of Tech Talks 101. So today we had with us Mr. Ishan Karunanayake, and we spoke a lot about his research in early detection of botnets that use privacy preservation techniques. And we also spoke about the opportunities available in Australia, about how are you going to apply for a PhD opportunity in Australia. And I believe that would be very useful for all the listeners listeners specifically in the field of cybersecurity, and also for the people who are looking forward to apply for their PhDs. So thank you very much, Mr. Ishan Karnanayak, and we wish you all the best in your PhD in the reading for a PhD, and also with your research. And we believe that everything that you do there would be successful, and you turn out to be a great game changer in this industry. So
Okay.
and
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for inviting me once again. And I hope you can contribute a lot for the viewers from these kind of activities. And I wish you well with this series as well.
My pleasure. It has been a great inspiration and a pleasure to have you here with us today. So, so for anyone who is joining with us for the first time today, you could visit our Facebook, YouTube pages to check about the first episode that we had. And this episode will also be published in YouTube, and you can listen to this on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast as well. So thank you very much, and we'll be again seeing you with the next episode of Tech Talks 101. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good night. Thank you very much.